My name is Kimber Marie, your lawyer friend who is obsessed with all things intellectual property, and this is my YouTube channel. I'm in the process of memorializing my time in law school in a way that I can share my experience and the insights and advice I would give to aspiring law students or current law students. We talked about 1L and 2L year, and today we're going to talk about 3L year, which for me, because of the program I went to, it was 2.5 years long. Basically, I graduated in December and then sat for the February 2024 uniform bar exam. If I were to describe 3L year in just a few words, I would describe it as mental relief. Actually, no, I would describe it as false relief. And the reason that is, and I mentioned this in my last video, is that as soon as you make it to one big milestone with your legal career, there's one right behind it. So for me personally, it was kind of hard to enjoy 3L year just because the bar exam's right behind it. The workload was not quite as heavy as it was in 2L year because at that point, most people are starting to unload a lot of their responsibilities, and votings are taking place at various organizations to replace leadership, and most students are starting to wind down and get ready for graduation and bar prep. So the workload was definitely not as heavy, but the stress, the impending stress of the bar exam and having to start bar prep, and just 2.5 years of people just building up this big exam, which is high stakes because it determines whether or not you can be a practicing attorney, that is very much weighing on you in 3L year. Before I get into the obstacles and advice I would give, I figured I would go through the last classes that I took my final trimester at Elon. So my first one, which was also my favorite, internet law, I really loved it because we talked about internet law, the state of internet today, and just the various technologies that are changing the internet and the laws that are trying to catch up with it and not doing a super great job, in my opinion. At Elon, we're required to take bar exam foundations in your final trimester. And again, I don't know if that's a requirement at every law school. I will say during the time that I took that class, I do remember there being a lot of frustration because I think a lot of people, well, I'll speak for myself. I know for me, I was annoyed that I was being forced to do bar prep before bar prep had already begun, and I was worried about getting burnt out. But that being said, in hindsight, I'm actually glad that we had that class. It is good to have a class where you can go ahead and start reviewing bar questions and not being by yourself while you do it. Last 3 classes, one's not really a class. The law review credit was still in place. This trimester was really about deciding who's going to take over the next year for the next journal. I know for me, since I was on the symposium team and leading it, our symposium was that trimester, and that was stressful. Anytime you're planning a big event that is school-wide, there's going to be stress to that, but I'll go into more detail about that in my law review video. The other 2 classes were family law and my leadership capstone, which the focus of mine was on technology in the legal industry, primarily what are the technology skills that every associate should understand or have a basic understanding of upon graduating. Now let's get to obstacles and what I would advise other 3Ls or upcoming 3Ls on how to overcome these obstacles or try to mitigate them. Slight boredom and senioritis were huge. I think if you can remember high school and your final year in college, like just being so done with anything school related, that was a very real feeling in law school as well. And I think it's heightened just because of the stress that law school puts on law students. It was very intense. And so you kind of have to push back against that urge to just give in or procrastinate. Again, I think the best way to do that is just by managing your time effectively. If you need to take a break, if you start to realize that you're not focusing as well, go for a walk, take a 5-minute break. It's not the end of the world. You can pick it up in a few minutes, an hour. The second obstacle was the bar application, just because, and I'm pretty sure this is standard for most states, even though each state varies with how they handle the bar application. It is a lengthy process. It usually, for North Carolina, it requires a lot of recommendations. You have moral character recommendations plus like standard recommendations. I think I had to get, I can't even remember now, but it was definitely 3 moral recommendations and maybe 6 standard recommendations from people. And then of course the application itself, and you're having to remember every job, every address you've lived at, and then just making sure everything is filled out correctly and compiled correctly and then mailed correctly and on time. There again, organization is key. Make a checklist. If your school provides one, that's even better. Sometimes your Board of Law examiners might have a checklist on their website. Print it out, have it where you can see it. Just break it down into manageable chunks. Do a little bit each day. When it comes to the recommendations, I definitely recommend that you reach out to those people as soon as possible, so that way they have time to write a good one and not put it off, which would make you have to procrastinate on your application. And then finally, the last obstacle is kind of a mix of prepping for graduation and making sure that you're all good to go. Like if there's any documents you need to submit to your school. I don't really think we had that many, but I do remember just getting emails of graduation information to know. And then on top of that, prepping for the bar, so buying your bar prep program. There's different types. I will do a video solely about bar prep and what my experience was like and my approach is like. But I put that as an obstacle here just because it's a lot, and it's not a lot. The bar application does have a lot of steps to it, but when it comes to preparing for your bar prep program, it really is a matter of picking out which one you want and then waiting for them to mail it to you. And then you just follow the schedule, at least to begin with, that they give you. So it's not that many steps, but because it's so important, and again, like it just feels so high stakes, and in a way it is high stakes, that's where the stress comes from. To close out, I would give my final piece of advice if you are a 3L watching this right now or you're about to be a 3L. Here's a few things that I would keep in mind. Find time to celebrate and rest after graduation. I don't know what your program is like or what the timeline is like for you. If you can, even if it's just a couple of days, please do that, because law school, again, takes a toll on us mentally, physically, emotionally, and allowing yourself time to just rest and kind of decompress from the schedule you've been on and just the stressors of law school is worth it. Another thing I would recommend is don't necessarily stop networking. I did network a little bit even during bar prep, but don't make that like your biggest priority, because it's not your biggest priority, and most people that you network with will understand that. So if you're like me and you didn't have a job lined up, it's definitely going to be in the back of your mind. Try and stay active on LinkedIn just a little bit each day. Again, not your priority. Bar prep is. If you're able to not worry about it until it's completely over, do that. My last piece of advice would be, if you're able to only focus on bar prep, do that. Like, exhaust all of your resources to try and find a way where all you have to worry about is bar prep. If you are someone where your circumstances make it to where you can't do that, don't guilt yourself. It is still possible to pass the bar exam. You're just going to have to be even more adamant and vigilant about your time management and getting your study hours in. So again, look at the people in your life, the resources you have access to, talk to your school, and see if they can help you come up with a way to make sure that you can have your study hours where you are not being bothered. You don't have to worry about anything. You can just get your bar study in. I lied. I have one other piece of advice, and I will definitely reiterate this in the video about bar prep. but go ahead and find a bar mentor, someone that you can check in with weekly. Yes, weekly. And also go ahead and come up with a bar accountability group. So for me, it was 2 other friends. We had a text chat. Every day we checked in with one another for the most part. There may have been a few days where that didn't happen. But yeah, we checked in with each other every day and said, I got these tasks done, or I didn't get them all done, but here's my plan for fixing that, or how I'm going to handle that tomorrow. And then my bar mentor, I checked in with weekly. Again, I'll talk more about that in another video. But during your 3L, your final semester, trimester, go ahead and start figuring out who that can be for you. If you like these tips and hearing about my law school experience, please consider subscribing. Follow me at Kimber Marie James on my socials, and connect with me on LinkedIn so I can be a part of your community and cheer you on. Have a good day.